Your seats. We're starting in about 1 minute. Good evening. My name is Ariana Alvear, Director of the Legislative Impact for the County Council, and I'd like to welcome you to the second fiscal year 2027 budget listening session. This is a moment for the Council to hear your concerns and budget priorities. However, before I turn it over to Chair Oriata, I would like to go over a few quick rules. Please address persons by their titles, for example, Council Member, County Executive, Director. If you would like to speak, we ask that you sign up at the clerk's office over there. This is for record-keeping purposes in accordance to council rules. We have interpretation available in Spanish and sign language for those who may need it. Tenemos interpretación en español para aquellos que lo necesiten. Finally, please keep your comments to 2 minutes for allow time for residents to speak and for council members and staff to respond if possible. And with that, I thank you very much for coming, and I would like to turn it over to Chair Oriata and council members for some opening remarks.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming out tonight. As mentioned, this is the second of two budget listening tours. When I became chair, it was really important to me that I wanted to make sure we came out into the community. One of the issues that people brought up is that a lot of our sessions, it might be hard for people to attend because of where they are, the time of day that we host them. And so we started off this year with listening tours where we went to North Central and South part of the county where we could talk about general issues around policy, your main concerns. We also had a survey, and people really liked it. They said, could you please continue this? So I said we would definitely do that, and I thought the best time was during budget season to do a round two. So similar to how we did it during the listening tours, we also have a survey that you can fill out, so you can scan. You've got it in your mailbox, or if you go on social media, there's two QR codes. So some people, they don't mind coming up and testifying, but some people want, they might be a little shy, but they still want to make sure that their opinions or thoughts are collected. So we want to push you also to taking the survey and letting us know what your budget priorities are. Again, thank you just for participating in this. We want to hear directly from you what your concerns are, how we can better prioritize your budget concerns. So the topic today is mainly budget. So we're going to start off with a presentation, about 15 minutes, so we can do a high overview of the budget. It's the same presentation that we got when the budget dropped from the county executives team. And then we're going to open up the floor for comments and questions. And there's a timer, so everyone will have 2 minutes, but you'll be able to come to the mic. They'll call your name. Now, what's different than usually if you come testify at council where we have general speakers from any topic, we don't respond, and that's usually because that's just like a decorum rule. So we hear the comments, but we're not really able to say anything back. That's different for these. So it's really important for this not to be you just talking at us or us just talking at you. So there might be questions where we have a direct answer, so one of us will answer it, or we'll turn to the county executives team. And so this will be more of a dialogue than just a one-sided conversation. Does that sound good? Okay, awesome. So again, thank you for being here. And now I'm going to pass it to my colleague if she has any opening remarks before the presentation.
Thank you so much, Chair Oriata. Thank you for your leadership with this budget listening session. Good evening to everyone. My name is Wanika Fisher. I'm the council member for District 2, and I chair two of our committees for the county council. So I'm sure Madam Chair will have me answer some of those questions. So I chair our General Assembly Committee. That committee is basically our committee that advocates and gives the council's opinion or information on legislation and the budget in Annapolis. So we meet every Tuesdays in the morning, and then I chair our public safety Health and Human Services Committee. So that committee, out of the budget, that committee is about $1.2 billion, and that is the amazing men and women in blue you see in the back, our Prince George's Police Department, our State's Attorney's Office, Department of Corrections, Sheriff, Emergency Management, Health Department, and more. And so that is significant, and excited to get into these questions with you here tonight. I do apologize. I do have to leave a bit early this evening, but I'll make sure if you want to ask me anything, you can have my contact, and anything in the table with the pink over there is me, which most people know, and you can call me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll pass it to our Director of OMB to give a presentation on the overall budget.
Budget. And most people ask, okay, how do you spend that $5 billion? Well, $3 billion goes to the school board, another $1 billion goes to public safety, and the remaining amount goes to general government. So we are managing that $5 billion budget to make sure our residents have the services that they need to actually feel good about public safety. We have the police department in the back. We have the fire department. When you call 911, someone shows up and they're ready to provide those services to you. Next slide. We also put $10.5 million into beautifying the county. We did street sweeping, litter pickup, and clear the curb. We're also investing $84.4 million for stormwater management. When we started back in June, as you know, we had a budget deficit. We had a $155 million budget deficit. We were able to close that budget gap before we submitted our budget. As you know, we get $5 billion in revenue. We have to make sure we do not expend more than the $5 billion. We did that by looking at prepayments on our debt. We were able to close that gap with additional revenue from fiscal year 2026. We got additional income tax revenue. We were able to prepay the debt that we had from the school board. As you know, we're building 8 new schools for the county. So the county has also invested $42 million to our P3 project. Next slide, please. So a lot of people say, where did we start? When the county exec came in office, as you know, Washington Commanders will be moving in 2030. So it was up to us to look at additional revenue sources to actually close our budget gap and make sure we're able to sustain services from this date up until 2030. So, as you know, the SPEAR is coming to Prince George's County in 2030. Yes, that will bring over $1 billion in revenue eventually to the county. So that will also help us in making sure our residents have the services that they need. A lot of people ask about the school board. How do they get funded? We get state aid in the amount of $2 billion. The county invests another $1 billion for them to have a budget of $3 billion. Public safety, we give over $453 million to the police station. They will actually be hiring 150 new police recruits in fiscal year 2027. We also give over $300 million to the fire department. They will be bringing on an additional 100 new firefighters in fiscal year 2027. So we are investing in our community. Capital improvement, we're spending about $818 million in building schools and renovating our buildings to make sure our citizens have the services they need and our staff that's in those buildings 24/7 are safe. lot of people ask about revenue. Where do we get our revenue from? Piece of that is we get $1 billion in property taxes, another $1 billion in income taxes. As you all know, with the federal government laying off or eliminating positions, we haven't seen the impact of that yet, but we know we will see the impact of those layoffs. Okay. Again, I want to just make sure you know that our finances are strong in the county. We are fiscally responsible for every penny that comes into our budget, and our economy is growing. Our revenue grew 3.2% from fiscal year 2026 to 2027. So we are seeing growth, and I will stop now and turn it over to the county executive, well, the county council for questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Now I'll pass it to staff to help us navigate question and comment portion.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I am Lene White. I'm your meeting facilitator for this evening. I will be calling your names in groups of 3. I ask that you line up at the mic so that once the person in front of you is done, we can continuously move the line so that everyone gets an opportunity. In front of you in the center aisle is the clock. You have 2 minutes, and respectfully, we ask that once your time is up that you allow the council members and or our partners who are here today to respond to your question. With that being said, and one other thing, if you are unable to get up from your seat, if you just let me know, I can bring the mic over to you. You do not have to stand up. You can just let me know by raising your hand. Thank you so much, and we're going to get started. The first person is Demetrius. We have Stacy Hartwell, and then Liz Johnson, please. Thank you so much.
I'm a virgin, so I'm going to let you know that. This is for the residents of Prince George's County. People are living in slums in these transition housing. No one is answering their prayers. And I'd like to know, what are you going to do about it? People have sent emails, have called, nothing be done, especially in a hazard building, the people breathing the bad air.
I just want to make sure, you said for transitional housing?
Transitioning housing.
Can you tell me like which locations there's been complaints on?
Suitland, Southern Management.
Oh, okay. So
Southview.
Got it. So not necessarily transitional housing, but like apartments owned by those managed by those companies.
And they receive grants from Westmore's office.
Jeremy. Thank you. I'm going to ask Jeremy to come get the list of the specific ones. And do we have someone from DPI here?
DPI is not going to do anything. They're going to ignore. They're going to check certain things. But you got air quality in the sewage, in feces, in the rugs, and not cleaning it, and it's going in people's units. No, they're not.
And just to comment on that, ma'am, I was working on some legislation on behalf of us in Annapolis, so I'll happy to follow up with you on that. I think, one thing, and it's funny, I just came from a 2-hour meeting about a building that's just not in a good situation in my part of the county as well. I think Annapolis is looking at some state legislation to help with regulating these buildings, right? And entry, right? Because when you enter apartment buildings, it's very different than when we send complaints to the general part of the building. A tenant doesn't have to open their door, right? Unless they call the complaint. So I'm just definitely happy to follow up with you. I will say that, there's a difference between landlords and slumlords, and we're doing a lot of work at the council to identify those things. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, another thing, the residents are afraid because they are threatened to get thrown out their apartment in eviction. And when they do report to DPI, they will get mad when you say, hey, I put a ticket in, right, or resident. They don't have it, or they'll get mad and tell the resident manager who made a complaint in the common area.
Yeah, they definitely shouldn't be doing that because of the fear of retaliation. And I know we as a council have been supporting Just Cause. I think they call it something different now, but still Just Cause of Good Cause eviction for just that reason. Is because up for a vote next week. We hope that it passes finally because of what you're just talking about, that sometimes people are being evicted for reasons that are not fair. One of the things that we have been talking about is having proactive inspections, especially when it comes to apartment facilities, so that we have issues. When we know there's like repeat offenders, like we know certain management companies, some apartments constantly get calls. We shouldn't have to be just waiting for a call to be kicked up, but working with DPOD to how can they be more proactive. So the director is here. So we're going to make sure that we get the list of the particular places that you have concerns about, and then we'll make sure to escalate them between myself and Councilmember Fisher to make sure that we address those issues. So Jeremy is going to come up and get your contact information and the red tie and then the exact apartment complexes as well. Thank you.
So you may go back to my seat.
He'll come up to you right now. Yep, at your seat. Yep. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Hartwell. I'm with the South County Environmental Justice Coalition. My question: a major issue both in this country and nationwide is the rising utility costs. Residents are experiencing electricity bill increases upwards of over 150%. Given that the Sphere, a project that I'm excited about, will be a high demand energy user consuming more than 5 megawatts annually, that's roughly equivalent to the usage of over 600 homes. That's a lot of utility. What protections or community benefits will you put in place to ensure residents are not burdened with the added costs of electricity generation and distribution for this project? Additionally, what measures will you implement and how much is in the budget to protect residents from the impacts of this large-scale development, including light pollution, noise pollution, and increased traffic?
Thank you. I know that this is a top issue for Councilmember Burrows, who represents the district where the Sphere is slated for. And I know that this is something that him and the county executives have spoken in lengths about, needing a very strong community benefits agreement. And we are in lockstep as a council. Even though we can support the development, we know that we can't support it without what you're talking about ensuring that there's funding set aside to deal with exactly the things that you're talking about. So there should be a carve out of resources that go directly to help the community. Another thing we've been working on is just the rising utility costs overall, right? Because if the Sphere comes or wasn't coming, we still are getting these increases. And a lot of us know it's because of multitude of things, but part of it is what's happening in Virginia impacts us, right? So all of those data centers or things on the grid, it doesn't care about borders, right? So we're seeing increased costs. So we've gone to Annapolis and have asked them, and they did pass legislation specifically trying to address the increase on utility costs. We've asked for a moratorium so that they couldn't keep raising the rates. And just today we passed a resolution asking the People's Council to investigate the increased costs of our utility bills. So we're trying to fight this on every angle to get this down, but we are very mindful that there has to be a community benefits agreement tied to that project.
I always appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And the only other thing I will add, just because I used to serve in the state house, is, I always say as a community and as a county, we also have to have in our communities and our civics, a conversation about energy, right? The reality is the state of Maryland borrows our way to energy consumption. We do not create enough energy to sustain our communities. That's fact.
But that's a good thing because it costs more to make it than it does to import
But I would
it.
say that I think when you look at at least, I also chair all 8 jurisdictions for Maryland Association of Counties, so the big 8. And so that's Baltimore City, Frederick, those conversations with all big 8 counties. But it also, there is, when it comes to like the way the fee structure is, we have a longer conversation. We are paying a lot more when it comes to borrowing energy outside of our state to maintain ourselves. So there's a lot to think about 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now about where Maryland wants to go. I was super supportive of banning fracking and other things like that. I voted for that, but I would say we have to talk about it and be on the same accord. And I think that's also part of it.
Thank you.
I was also told that I had to ask all my questions at once. I couldn't come back up again. So my next question is, understanding that Route 210 is known throughout the nation as the highway of death, what are the county's budget plans to help offset and reduce the risk of that highway?
Yes, yes. So 210 is a state road, as you know. So we've been advocating. So anything that's a number is state. Anything that's like Ivy Lane is county. So 210 is a state road. We've been advocating in the state budget, which they're finishing actually this week, for more roadway infrastructure to help 210. There's been speed cameras in 210. So 210's been like a big legislative priority for the entire county. Prince George's County, sadly, and I chair our pedestrian work group, safety work group. We're number 1 in roadway fatality, which is not good. So I'm hoping that we are going to see our budget win with 210 this coming session.
Okay, my last question. She told me that's what I had to do.
Okay, but I'll let you, but just for everyone moving forward, what we'll do is let you ask all the questions before we start answering, just so we can make sure we can track the time. But I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, I should get some time back because we just took up some of my time doing that. So anyway, okay, I'll be brief. Given that your budget forecast, it says that you're going to be in the black, and the urgency to advance data centers was precipitated by the need for funding. Now that we don't have that projected crisis, what is the council's position on holding off on data centers for Landover?
Yeah, I have always been against data centers.
We love you for that. We do. We love you for that.
And I think I can speak for everyone saying that I think everyone is definitely against them at the Landover site. The moratorium that the county executive signed is still in place. We also strengthened that language. I think the moratorium goes into the end of April. But what we really long-term solution are going to need to do is pass something that just makes it clear that Landover and sites like that, that they can never have a data center. And yeah, I'll leave it there. But
Okay.
yeah, everyone knows my stance on this. So.
And we're grateful for that. Thank you so much for your service.
No, thank you.
My name is Liz Johnson, and I'm the former housing chair for the Maryland Conference of the NAACP and also with the Prince George's County NAACP. And last night I was in Annapolis to hear people talking about District 26. And not one of the representatives who stood up said anything about a subject of which I'm very passionate, and that is unlawful foreclosures. There have been people that Prince George's County, Maryland, is number 2 in foreclosures around the country now. Number 2, folks. And thank God from Councilman Burrows that gave us a grant to allow us to go around and do seminars for groups, churches, and all kinds of people to let them know that our group, Strategic Housing Solutions, can help people with legal help to help them to answer when they get a notice of intent to foreclose. Now, that notice of intent to foreclose is the first shot across your bow to let you know that they're coming for your house. And so many people have lost their homes and just do it without knowing that we can give them help. So then, more so than a question, I have a comment that my nonprofit, Strategic Housing Solutions, is here to help you So see me after the meeting, and I will give you my card if you need help with an unlawful foreclosure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know, Councilmember Fisher, do you want to talk about the legislation on the state level?
Yes, Madam Chair. The County Council has been I was trying to look up the bill number, so I apologize. I don't have them at the top of my head with all the numbers, but we've been working on a statute of limitations on bringing a foreclosure. Supporting that bill, it was cross-filed with Delegate Jones, and I forgot the Senate cross-file, and been working with Councilmember Burrows on foreclosure legislation in the state. So we are very much agreed with you and want to support anything we can do. Yes. And we'll talk about it later. So we're always, as a council, and I do my best to lead the council in that way. We're always advocating, but there are other elected officials that chair committees that don't let bills out or amend things that we fight for over and over and over again to get. And so we can advocate more with him and get his residents in District 20 riled up would be helpful.
Thank you so much. Our next three, I cannot read the last name, so I apologize. D. Shannon or D. Sharon from District 8, Adrian Jones, and Bill Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments. My name is Adrian Jones, and I live in District 9. Prince George's County has a litter problem. Budget priorities must include increasing DPWT's litter removal performance and decreasing litter violations. We need creative ideas and action from the county executive and council to implement long-term solutions that will benefit the entire Prince George's County. Long-term solutions must start with auditing DPWT to determine why there is a gap between budget allocations and litter removal outcomes. Funding must be dedicated to vetting and hiring local business contractors and DPWT engineers, but most importantly, supervisors to increase the performance standard and ensure that litter removal is performed timely, completely, and consistently on schedule. To decrease the amount of litter on our roadways, the county must invest in litter cameras. The State Highway Administration is exploring a program that will provide cameras on state exit ramps. Prince George's County DOE and the Police Department manage the illegal dumping surveillance program through a DOJ grant. In short, there are models the county can follow to fund and implement a litter program across the county. Maryland Senate Bill 525 allows the public to submit evidence of littering and receive a share of any resulting fines if the evidence leads to a conviction. To implement this bill that has been in effect since October 2025, and recognizing the proposed $453 million budget for the police department, a small, dedicated team of law enforcement can and should be created to serve as the required enforcement unit to review the evidence and refer eligible cases for citation or prosecution of litter violators. In closing, I commend the county executive for spearheading Project Elevate. At the same time, if the initiative to elevate the county's beauty is going to succeed, this proposed budget and future budgets must prioritize decreasing littering violations and improving the workforce, resources, and performance of DPWT and all agencies responsible for litter removal management. As an aside, with my time left over, the DOJ grant program closes on April 27th at 3 p.m.
Thank you. I want to pass it to the director to talk about funding dedicated specifically to Strike Force and to the litter program.
We have allocated $10.5 million for litter removal. You can always call 311, do your complaint, and one of the agents will be coming out to actually take care of that.
And I'll also add the new Strike Force program that the county executive has put together. They also are advocating on the state level for additional funding. It's kind of like a rapid response to try to close out a lot of the complaints. A lot of them end up being like illegal dumping and litter. I think there was a backlog of like over, was it like 2,500? What was the backlog for Strike Force? Do you recall? Say it again. Over 27,000. So I was way off. So there was a huge backlog. And so I do think that the Strike Force program is doing their level best to try to get those numbers down and trying to advocate for more funding on the state level specifically to help deal with that issue. Oh, yes. So we also increased the fines, to your point. So we do have the camera programs for illegal dumping. So we did that pass on the state level, we enabled it on the local level, and we increased the fines to the maximum. So it used to be we couldn't charge more than $1,000 for any type of fine at all. So we went to the state and asked them to increase it. We wanted more, but we got them to increase it to $5,000. So now it's $5,000 if you're caught illegal dumping. And we are going to be working on that legislation that you mentioned from Nick Charles. So I've been talking to the county executive offline on like the process for it, but we are working on that as well. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to go through the list. Yeah. Oh, it's still through 311. So if you put anything to the Strike Force, it's just a kind of a wing of the work that happens at 311. But you also can, I always tell people, go to 311, but also go to your council member and send us the number so that we can elevate it for you as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Sharon Khan. I am a resident of District 8, and I don't see my councilman here, but I want to applaud him for last year. They had a program for seniors where they cut our lawns, and I wasn't sure whether or not that program is still in existence because I threw my lawnmower away last year. But if it's not, I think that it did work very well for individuals in my community, and I'm wondering if they're going to bring that particular program back. I know they had some alternative programs this year. One was a rebate, a Pepco rebate, but I think that lawn service program, was very, very beneficial to seniors. My second question was, my understanding is that they're going to renovate this community center. There was a project that we were told about, Taraji P. Henson Foundation program, and that program involves a wellness center, mental health center, and they were talking about putting $30 million into this particular center for that purpose. And because I didn't hear anything, I just heard it, like they say, through the grapevine kind of thing. I'm wondering if the residents are going to be part of that planning process. My understanding is that they're going to start that renovation project this year, and this is already almost April. We haven't heard anything else about it. My concern is if it's a mental health facility, how would that affect the individuals who come on a regular basis? I come every day. I'm here at 9 o'clock in the morning, exercise 5 days a week, and I'm just wondering how that would affect the residents who are already using this facility.
Thank you. So for your first question about the lawn care program, yes, Councilmember Burrows is still doing the lawn care program. So if you reach out to his office, they can give you the details, but so the lawn care program, there's one for District 8 and District 7. So those two districts have lawn care programs.
When we signed up this year, that information was not available. When they sent out the new flyer, the lawn care program was not on the new flyer. Only the rebate for the...
I think he was just advertising what was new. And he might not have sent out his advertisement yet. Like, for example, I'm doing the lawn care program for my district, but the mailer's not going out for another few weeks.
Okay,
So he just might not have advertised it. but I know that he's doing it. So
Okay.
definitely just reach out to his office and say you are on the lawn care program, you want to stay on the lawn care program, and we'll get your contact information. So Jeremy, can you get it, and we'll make sure we get it to Preston, his chief of staff. And then the second thing about the renovations, 100%, this is something that the Councilmember Burrows has been advocating for. The reason why I think the community hasn't been brought in yet is that it still hasn't been moving. He's still advocating on a daily basis to make sure you guys get the funding promised to your community center, and he wants to make sure that it's done with community input. So the $30 million, he did his job to make sure it was allocated, but to your point, the vision of what's going to be here, what it will look like, it'll be
Exactly.
input with the community. So you're not behind. It has not moved forward without you. He's just still trying to advocate to get it moving.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Jeremy, don't forget to get her information for Preston.
Good afternoon. I come to you today with comments related to literature, littering as well. My name is Bill Anderson. I come to you today requesting for the county, thank you, thank you, requesting for the county to budget and roll out a litter cleanup is expensive campaign. We need literature sent home and signs as large as the ones we see on the side of the roads for those seeking political appointments. The signs do not necessarily need to be throughout the county, but definitely in areas and locations where abuse is high. Additionally, we would like for the county to budget a test pilot program to use drones to monitor and issue citations in hotspot areas for those individuals that are littering our roads and exit ramps. We believe there are benefits with advertising the program on the side of county vehicles to promote drone litter monitoring. Drone litter monitoring. The thought is, if the word gets out, following a few citations through the media, online social sites, and the county's website, that drones are being used to seek out offenders, we may see some reduction in this type of behavior.
Thank you. And I think that's a great idea to consider for the drone program. So we took notes of that. So thank you for your comments. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. These are great questions. Our next three are, it looks like Felton C. Moss, Marcia Dabbitt, Debo, I apologize, Marcia Debo, and then Rick Parker.
You ready? We're ready? All right, I want as much time as possible on the clock. I got lots of questions, but I'm Dr. Felton Moss. I have the pleasure of representing District 7 on the school board, and I chair the Policy and Governance Committee for the Prince George's County Board of Education. The first half of my 2 minutes tonight is complimentary, and then the second half I do have a question. The first half is, this is the first time in a number of years that we've seen a significant investment beyond what the state required of the county in the amount of $20 million for the school system. And so I would be remiss if I didn't come in this space and thank the county executive for the proposed budget that gives us $20 million on top of what we've gotten in the past. And I just want to be clear that at the same time, while we're getting money, the system has brought fiscal discipline, and we cut $150 million. But we wouldn't be able to do the work that we're going to do next year without that. And so we hope the county council will maintain that. My second question, I'm going to take my hat off as a school board member, and I'm going to put my hat on as a citizen who lives in the county. I've become very frustrated with a policy in our county that allows someone to leave a covered car on the side of our streets for far too long. The county policy says that if your car is covered and the registration is fine, it can stay there as long as possible. So as we talk about cleaning up our county and beautifying our county, we need to crack down on that a bit. There's a car that was in my neighborhood for 3 years, and I called Councilwoman Oriata, and we've gotten that car removed now, thankfully. So thank you for getting it moved. But I hope the council will invest in cleaning up the county and then cracking down on some of our policies that leave some of these cars on the side of the road. They just don't make our community look good when we do it. But thank you for your deep investments in the public school system. But if we can get these cars off the road, I think we can get to a county that we can all be proud of and excited to drive down our streets every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our amazing school board member representing my district, District 7. And I want to make sure I understood the policy. So you're saying that currently the issue you're looking for is making that the covered cars can't stay on the road even if they have valid registration, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 48 hours, which is in the existing, but I don't know that we have the team of folks that can check that every 48 hours to be able to make it happen. It really is a management issue, but I don't think covered cars should be just sitting on the street that long inside. There's one that had a Virginia tag on it, so not even a Maryland taxpayer who's getting to leave their car on our Maryland streets. So I think we need to spend some time thinking about how to clean these cars up that are on the side of the streets.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Hello, I'm Marcia Devote. I'm sure by now you've read the packets I've given you on the animal shelter that needs more money, more funding. We also need spay and neutering programs so we can reduce the population of stray cats and dogs. Also, I hope you will fund the TNR or spay and neuter program because we really need it. The stress on the animal shelter is stress on us, the volunteers. I'm Outlaw Kitties. What we do is we help our neighbors across the county to spay and neuter their pets and their dogs and to get them so they won't have any more puppies that cause strain on our shelters. So we need that. We also need the shelter to be funded because it's only funded for 27% of its operational hours, and it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week agency. Someone is always there. So that means 76% is not 70, 23, 76, did I do that right? 76% is not covered.
Thank you. I want to turn to the director. How much money do we currently have allocated for the spay and neuter program in the budget?
$8.5 million. It was an increase of 11% from fiscal year 26 to 27.
I'm sorry, sweetheart, that's not accurate. $8.5 million, that would keep us running for 20 years.
That covers staff. That's at the location. And all of their operating costs. So their total budget for animal services is $8.5 million.
So they said they won't be able to, because of that, they're still $500,000 short. So they won't be able to do the spay and neutering program.
So I'll look into that specific. So I see that that's the full budget, but you're talking about specifically within the budget for spay and neutering.
We would need $250,000.
Okay.
And that money won't even last a whole year, but that would do 2,000 cats, and that would do about 1,000 dogs in the county. I have ideas on how to raise money. If you want to hear them, I can tell you how to raise money for this.
I will definitely talk to you offline about the ideas, but we'll notate the $250,000 request specifically for that program. And I'll make sure my staff gets your information so that we can have follow-up conversation about your ideas.
Okay,
But
because
thank
I gave it to you 2 months ago, and
Oh, then I have it.
yeah, and then it's broken down. No disrespect, sweetheart, but when you said $8.5 million, I was about to faint and go and run and tell everybody.
So we have your request, and we'll talk. I don't think we've had a meeting, but we have your documents. And so this is the last of this public budget hearing, but we'll still have that one last budget hearing that we always have that's officially on the record in the county council.
Right.
And we haven't started budget negotiation. So once we start that, we'll be updating the community on our wins, what we think we're able to negotiate into the budget.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Rick Parker. I'm a United States military veteran, and I want to thank the County Council and County Executive for continue to support the Prince George's County Office of Veterans Affairs. I understand they got a little more money, but hey, every little bit counts when there's a lot of veterans, that needs help. The other thing I want to speak, I was at the session last night, and I heard something that kind of disturbed me. 72% of the budget is on the backs of homeowners. That's kind of disturbing to me. So, and at the same time, I also heard, I think it was the District 9 council member saying that there's more housing, affordable housing that's going to be made. So, I mean, does that mean that those homeowners are going to be bearing the brunt of the budget too? And last but not least, please help me understand what specifically is affordable housing.
Thank you, Councilmember Begay.
So let me start here. We've been talking. This has been an ongoing problem in Prince George's County. About 7% of the revenues in this county is based on homeowners. So it's residential taxes. We have about 29% that is commercial. So we've been focused. There's been a discussion about we need to focus on bringing more commercial development. If you remember, some of you, I did put in a townhome pause so that we could focus on bringing housing in certain places and then really focus on commercial development, because commercial development really does increase the revenue. And if you look at Montgomery County, 70% of their revenue is commercial. So I will say our biggest commercial, we do need to find more bigger projects. And we see, I think when we looked at the assessment of the National Harbor, that brings about $73 million alone. And people have concerns about Six Flags closing, and that was a big part of when they started the closure. We were talking with them, but that actually only brought around $3 million in revenue. So what we are looking at is that we need about 10 more National Harbors. So we need some big development. I will say that right now for Six Flags, it is currently ending negotiations with the new owner, so we should be knowing who the new owner is soon. And that would allow us to start to plan a big project here. I know some people had concerns about Spear coming, but the reality is that we need projects like that to make a difference in bringing more revenues. And then same with the Commanders. The Commander Stadium, they is already sitting down and negotiating on what's going to happen with the Commander Stadium, which could be another commercial tax, a huge revenue. But that's still in transition, so they're in early process. So for even Six Flags and both Commanders, I think that we probably won't see the results of the transition. It will probably take between 5 to 10 years. But once we get once we get those big projects in, the revenues will start to flow, and it will start to transform us from 70% and move to more commercial development.
Okay, so one more question. Okay, do we have an economic development corporation?
Yes, we do.
Is it any help toward that, bringing businesses?
So they have new leadership at the Economic Development Corporation. This is something that myself, Councilmember Begay, since we were elected, I think almost three years ago now, has been a top concern of ours. Not to say there was not positive strides made by the EDC, but there was like a laser focus on maybe only a few industries, like especially around like the College Park area and quantum computing, which is definitely something we should focus on, right? We want to be the leaders there. There's an opportunity to grow. But when we had conversations around expanding in other areas, that's where we hit a wall. And there was not the focus that we feel like there should have been. So I say all that to say that now that there's new leadership between running the EDC, new leadership on the county executive side, our hope is that there is going to be a push for a strategic plan around economic development in a way that brings other businesses. Because yes, we want the industries and to pick industries that we're going to be known for, but then also we should expand our healthcare, we should expand our hospitality and our entertainment. Like, we shouldn't be just so focused on one industry that we're not growing every aspect, because when we look at DC, we're also losing money in entertainment and in shopping, right? So there's so many things that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think that that's the direction that we're heading in. And then your other question around affordable housing, this has been a huge issue for me, because when we look at affordable housing in the region, the way the federal government and the standard to decide if something's affordable, they're looking at AMI. And when they look at it and they create this standard for what's affordable, they're not just looking at the income of Prince George's County. We look at it from the perspective of the region. So what we've historically been seeing is that affordable housing for the region is usually market rate for Prince George's County. So when we're building like affordable senior housing and they show me the numbers, I'm like, who is that affordable for? That's more than my mortgage, right? And we have a lot of seniors on a fixed income, but it's called affordable. And it's because they're looking at the rate of the region. So the conversation I've been having with our new directors and leadership around housing is, how can we look at deeply affordable housing, and understanding that we know we're going to have to build market rate too. We're not saying abandoning that, but we have to look at the income of our residents, especially our senior population, and focus on making it truly affordable. So this is a problem that's really impacted because of what the standards are around affordability. The second issue is that there is not a separate affordability for seniors. So when they're looking at AMI and creating standards for what affordable is, they're looking at what a regular person is making when they're working. They're not taking into consideration someone on a fixed income.
That's obvious.
Exactly. So there's all of these like systemic issues with the way that we look at affordable housing. And one of the things that I'm championing is that when it comes to our tax dollars, when we're going to put up pilots, when we're going to invest our dollars, that we need set-asides that are deeply affordable, that are actually affordable for our senior population. And so that's something that I'm supportive of, and I know it's something that our county executive is supportive of. So my hope is that we can start to see more affordable units come to Prince George's County than what we've seen historically.
Well, I think we should strike the word affordable from the language until people can actually afford it.
Right. But the problem is that the affordability standards, like, so if you get a pilot or a TIF, to your point, those standards are standards by the state and standards by the federal. So they qualify for these things through HUD. So we might think it's not affordable, but the standards aren't based upon what we think locally. The standards are by so we have to go advocate. So one of the things I've been trying to advocate is, why don't we have a separate standard for seniors that's different, so that when we talk about investing in senior affordable housing, that we're taking into consideration their fixed income, and we're not looking at income based on people that are working. It's just common sense. So our hope is that we're able to change that, but you have an advocate in me. I think we need deeply affordable housing, especially for our senior population.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for those questions.
Take care.
No, I apologize. I want to make sure we... Oh, thank you for that. So area medium income. Area medium income is what that stands for. Mm-hmm. No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Our next three are Katrina Moody, Anthony Valor, and Pavel Zurolev.
mine. I wanted to know, when you're talking about the budgets, the amount that has been approved, how do you determine what districts and what area receive how much funding? Because it seems like anything that's north of Exit 11, Bowie, and those areas, they seem to get a lot more money than anybody south of there, because they have the shopping malls, they have all these amenities. When you get down to our area, we don't have any of that luxury. Our tax is just as high as their taxes are. Granted, Bowie pays a municipal tax and another tax, but we pay our share of taxes also. I don't think it's fair. DPI, I've had problems with them as far as cutting grass and picking up trash. A neighbor volunteered to help me. We went out and picked up trash. We got 9 55-gallon bags of trash. I've called Mr. Brooks with DPI numerous times, and I've asked about when is the grass going to be cut. You have contractors that come out to cut the grass, but they're not being held accountable. I've even said, let me know when they're coming out. I'll go out and critique it and let you know. Hold the paycheck, hit them in the pocket until they do it right. Doesn't take a person with a degree to cut grass. The schools, I hope with the school funding, hopefully anything that's allocated for the schools will be a better job done than what was done with Accokeek Academy. And tentatively, we were supposed to be getting another school, but the school up by the harbor was supposed to have a swimming pool. But because of lack of somebody being responsible and following through on things, they didn't get the school. They had to use that for the football field and stuff. Accokeek Academy, when they did that, they didn't factor into all the things that needed to be considered. So they were going to merge the old part with the new part. They forgot to factor in removing the asbestos and stuff like that. Who is doing these contractors? They didn't put a limit on the amount, like if you say, oh, well, we want to move this door over there, as far as how much can be charged for certain things. Somebody is not educated on doing contracts, and they're not getting someone to help them figure out how to do these contracts. As far as, I live in District 9, and I can't say I called my council person for something. You know who District 9 is. He's not MIA, he's not, he's MNA, missing no action.
Thank you for your comments. I will say that I hear you loud and clear about the disparity around resources between the north part of the county and the southern part of the county. That's one of the things that we've really been advocating to change, especially when it comes to the things we have control over, right? There's some things that, when it comes to the private sector, you know, we can't force where the private sector wants to go. But when it comes to the investment of our dollars, like, for example, how we invest in CIP projects for the library system, or for park and planning or economic development through the Redevelopment Authority, that is where we have an opportunity to say, let's focus our resources in areas that have historically not been invested in. And so it has been a uphill battle. I just want to be honest with you. Mainly myself and Councilmember Burrows, who represent those sides of the county, and thank you, Councilmember Blagay, has always been a champion of wanting to make sure that our areas get the resources that they deserve. People that know me know I'm struggling on how to say this, because the reality is that we have to hold accountable certain entities to doing the fair thing, the equitable thing, and doing resources in our community. So one example is, we've been advocating for years to get our fair share in economic development, specifically around building like the multi-gens and the pools and certain things in our community. And for the last 3 years, every time we've fought for it, we hit a brick wall. A brick wall, no. For 20 years, there was a pot of funding that my district had never gotten $1 for over 20 years. And once I got elected, I said, absolutely not. You know, my district, and same for Councilmember Burrows. So we started saying, you need to fund our district. And then for the last 3 years, they have historically said no, no, no. And now we're fighting. We're fighting on the state level. We're fighting for those resources. And this is where we need the community to help us with that, and sometimes sending emails and calling and saying, we deserve our fair share on the southern part of the county and not to be ignored when it comes to these resources. The second thing I'll say is we have a huge opportunity now with like the Blue Line Corridor in particular as an example. That's for more District 7. So many people know that originally there was $400 million. They fought for it like last session, and it was slated for mostly all my colleagues' district, and no money was slated for District 7. And I'm so thankful that the county executive decided to reevaluate all of the plans that were put in place to mandate that resources are going to be spent in District 7 too. That it's not fair that all of that money goes into counties that are not fighting for getting just the grocery store and basic things in their community while we get scraps. And so I say that this is a top priority. I fundamentally agree that there are certain entities that push back every time we fight for our fair share, but just know that in District 7 and District 8, you have two very vocal council members that are fighting to make sure we have our fair share. And yeah, thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about District 9. One of the biggest issues with District 9 is road infrastructure. The infrastructure there is troubling. There's a lot. It's really hard to get down. There's a lot of traffic down 5 and 4 and some other places. So I did introduce the National Infrastructure Bank. And what that's supposed to do is it bring about $5 trillion in infrastructure dollars. Now, this is a national bill. It is on the Hill, HR 5356. But what we're supposed to do with that is address the issues of infrastructure. And if that is passed, what we're going to do is put pressure on whoever the congressional member is to get the money so that we can build out the infrastructure that we have, because the infrastructure, the housing, and even the commercial has grown before the roads in itself. So it does make it harder as people are looking, like even when you think about the Spear going to National Harbor, the biggest issue that people brought up is the substantial number of traffic that we are going to see, and all the changes would have to be made to actually make sure that we don't endure more traffic in the area. So I do think that that's one of the burdens that hits especially District 9, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Valor Williams. I'm a guy that used to be a hypocrite. I used to sing the song by James Brown, Say It Louder, I'm Black and I'm Proud. But yet all the drugs I sold look like people that look like me. All the women that I lied to, used and abused, they look like me. But yet you couldn't do it to my family. That was a hypocrite. It wound up getting me 20 years, and I just came home. I made a vow to Yahweh that if he returned me to the streets, I would never touch the streets again unless I was rebuilding my villages that I helped to tear down. Derelict of duty, which means abandoning your post. I wasn't a good nephew. I wasn't a good father, a good son. I wasn't a good grandson. I wasn't a good neighbor. Because if you had that money, I had the product, and I was willing to give it to you. Too many of my people, I sent their children to school with nothing on their body, no food in their stomach. So I made that vow, and when I came home, I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. I heard the whisperer saying, man, go get that product, don't put no fentanyl in it, and you'll take the city by storm. Yahweh told me that if I go back to my lifestyle, I would die in 6 months. I don't believe in suicide, so I have no choice but to do what's right. I finally got a license. I'm not fearing to drive my car around y'all today. I got a license first time in 53 years. Do you hear me? I got insurance, and it's registered to me. Amen? All right. I was blessed to be able to be the founder of the House of Valor, right? House is a Hebrew word that means family. Beth means family. Valor means valor, strength, and courage. The family of courage. The resilience, the resilience of people like Harriet Tubman and Nathan Turner and things of that nature made everybody in the world say, I'll take a chance in America, regardless of what they was doing with our government. So today I'm standing before you the first time I ever spoke to the government. I'd never been a Republican or a Democrat because they all enslaved me. But this is the mission of this house. House of Valor provide motivational speaking, mentoring, recovery-focused support designed to inspire transformation and rebuild villages. Through personal development, peer recovery guidance, one-on-one mentorship, and apologizing for derelict of duty, we empower individuals to rediscover strength, purpose, and hope.
Thank
and I'm
you.
asking you to somehow use me. I fear nothing. Use me.
Thank you. One, thank you for being willing to come here today and share your story, and then also share what you've been through to hopefully make sure that a lot of our young people don't go down the same path.
Amen.
So I commend you on that. There's some amazing groups I want to connect you with. I don't know if you know Life After Release. It's run by this amazing woman, Kiana Johnson. She had a similar journey, and then when she was released, started this nonprofit, but focuses on women. So Jeremy, can you get his contact information? And then there's another group through the county that works around returning citizens and nonprofits. And so we'll make sure we connect you there around resources. You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Pavel Zhuravlev, and I'm making a comment about the importance of funding academic programs that are planned to be cut in next year's school district budget, such as language immersion programs. That affects both North and South County. One of the programs is in Largo High School. That's where many immersion programs go for high school. From Maya Angelou and another immersion program in South County. And these programs are pretty hard to build. It takes years, 10 years more of effort hiring teachers and creating curriculum, and it's very easy to destroy them, but it won't be possible to recover them. If anything, they should be expanded to South County. For instance, there are French and Spanish immersion programs in South County, but there is no Chinese immersion. Only one exists in the county, and it's in the northern county. But now that the curriculum are developed, it could be brought to South County as well. So, and the International Baccalaureate is the other one. I know less about it, but these programs are really beneficial for the students, and they are really make the schools provide opportunities to everyone. The Chinese immersion school is a boundary school. Immersion is for everyone, and it's a poor school. It's a Title I school, so that sort of balances out those conditions.
Thank you. Is our school board member still here? Felton Moss, Dr. Moss? Do you want to address that? I know that's something that you guys worked on.
One, it's good to see you again, still out advocating for our work. The school district currently has a 90-day strategic realignment work group that is working to realign our academic and specialty programs with our current fiscal reality. When the blueprint passed a number of years ago, there was a requirement at 75% minimum school funding that requires that 75% of the dollars actually goes to the school. We've been implementing that for almost 5 years now, and it's now changed our budget model. When that specialty program that you are describing was put in place, we were using a different budget model that would allow us to pay for it in a centrally managed way. Now that that budget model has changed, we have to rethink about our fiscal reality and align the system to that. Also, we have a consequence, and I'll be transparent in front of you. the one language immersion program that is a boundary school was occupying a large percent of our budget, whereas the other ones were not getting the same. So the school district is currently at an equity dilemma. So over the next 90 days, we'll finish working through that. I think your concerns are loud and clear. The final thing I'll say in this comment is we fundamentally believe that every child should have access to some type of language. That's not our current reality in the system. Some have, some don't. So we've got a lot of work to do over the next 90 days to bring our fiscal reality and our academic programs together. But now more than ever, our commitment to language programs is true, it's genuine, and we hope to keep them there. But we have to think about our budget reality. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Moss, and just thank you for your advocacy to make sure that kids in our district get their fair share of resources, and that I forgot how much of the budget was in one school in the north part of the county. So I appreciate your advocacy on that.
Thank you so much. Next three, well, I'll actually do four, will be Lori Champion, Arnetta Rogers, William Wilson, and John Mack. Thank you. If you can move towards the mic.
So let me just ask everybody a quick question. How many people drove up here and saw excessive litter on the side of the road? What about potholes? What about a couch or tires, mattresses, even a boat?
And dead animals.
I'm Lori. I'm a resident of District 8. I'm just here to advocate and give feedback on these issues plaguing our county. Specifically, we really need help in the southern part of the county. It's like that part of the county is a dumping ground. We need more resources for DPWT or DPI or whatever related department that handles this. We need consistent quality litter cleanup. They come out, they pick up litter in like a little section, and it's halfway done, and then it looks like they never even came by. We need landscaping. It got so bad last summer. I think the grass was like up to here before they came out. We need litter cameras. There are some streets, unfortunately, in Fort Washington where I live, where people just dump a whole apartment in the middle of the street. It's ridiculous. We need enforcement for illegal signage. Those signs are illegal, and the county doesn't do anything about it. And inevitably, they end up being litter that, has to be picked up. We also need businesses to be held accountable, because a lot of the excessive litter is around all these shopping centers and restaurants, liquor stores, vape shops. We need someone to enforce and hold those people accountable to clean up their establishments. And 311. So we send in requests almost every week for 311. A lot of the times, unfortunately, they close out our tickets. They say it's resolved, and then you go and you look at the space, and nothing has happened. And I call, and nothing happens. I email, and nothing happens.
Thank you. I apologize. I know we have a lot of people on the list. I'm just trying to be mindful of the 2-minute clock timer.
Okay, was that 2 minutes?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Can I just one more sentence? What I really want to say is that what the county looks like is a direct reflection of leadership. I'm not putting the blame solely on this administration, but the leadership drives culture, and the culture in PG County is that you can litter, dump, hang a sign anywhere, throw a mattress on the side of the road, have an illegal food truck, and nothing happens. Something needs to change.
Thank you. So a few things. So at the end of last session, because one of the issues you brought up, especially around holding the businesses accountable, especially in the strip malls or these strip shopping centers, was a huge concern also in my district. So I passed legislation, and I know many of my colleagues supported it, that would allow us to do two things. One, if you're a repeat offender, meaning you get multiple violations, that the county could then take over cleaning the property for up to a year, and that's with cleaning up trash and maintaining the grass or anything on that property. And we would charge you and 100% of the costs plus 10% admin fee, and that if you didn't pay it, then we could put it on your taxes. Because another issue we've been having when I did a ride-along with DPI is that they might write these violations, but a lot of these people weren't paying it. We had millions and millions of dollars of unpaid violations. So what does that look like? They're like, okay, we get a violation, we're not going to pay it. What's going to happen to me, right? So we had to say that can't happen anymore. If you get these violations, we're going to come get the money, even if we have to put it on your taxes. We're going to get that funding. And then also, we had to say, if you're not going to keep your property clean, we're going to do it and we're going to charge you. Because I get it. We can't afford to clean their property without charging them for it. So that legislation has passed, and now our goal is to see it implemented. Because that's another thing. We can pass the legislation, but it has to be enforced, right? So we passed legislation outlawing the LED lights, trying to change a lot of these things. But if it's not enforced, we're going to hit a brick wall. So making sure that the enforcement arm is there is a top priority for us, especially in the budget cycle, if that's increasing staffing. I know the county executive is looking at enforcement, and one of the reasons she's looking at moving it out of DPI and into another agency. So I say all that to say that I agree with you fundamentally that we have to hold people accountable. We do also have the cameras specifically for the issues with illegal dumping, and we did raise the fines for it. But we're having a lot of people coming, they're covering up their license plates, covering up their faces, because they know that the camera's there, and so then it's hard to enforce them with the fines. And then the last part that I was talking to one of my colleagues about, that we want to also create, and I think another person brought this up, more transparency and accountability for when we do have service crews coming out, if it's for litter pickup, if it's for cutting the grass, that we know when they're out there, that there's before and after pictures, that we're keeping these contractors accountable, because we're paying them and we think they're out there cleaning, but they could just sit in their car and they didn't do anything, and that's a sad reality. So how do we keep that accountability on making sure that these contractors are delivering on cleaning up the community, because we're paying for that service?
I'm sorry, just one more comment. So these have been ongoing issues for years. When is it going to be, when are we going to start to hold these people accountable? When is the enforcement actually going to happen? Because as it is now, it does not happen.
I agree with you. I've advocated strongly for changes in DPI for that exact reason, because, like I said before, it doesn't matter what we say the law is if we don't enforce it. If we don't hold people accountable, then they're never going to change, meaning they have to get the violations. We have to make them pay it. If we have to take them to court, then we have to take them to court. Like, we can't just write violations and then nothing happens. And I hope that this change of moving the enforcement to another agency will get us that new result, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So if it's not working where it's at, then we need to make structural changes to it. And that is what the county executive is doing, and I'm very supportive of changing the structure of enforcement to see if we are able to get the type of enforcement we need to hold these people accountable.
What about 311?
311.
It's a huge problem.
That is a huge concern. There is a new director of 311, and I told this to her when she became director. It's probably the hardest agency because of the historical issues with 311. What you just said, people will put in issues and they close it out, and nothing's done. And so my hope is that with the new director and overhauling the system, that we will see changes with the 311 system. I think the director for 311 is here. If you want to talk a little bit about the changes that you're planning on making to 311, I want to make sure I give you the opportunity. Yeah, you can use that mic.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Chanel Dickerson. I'm the new director for OCR, and I'm a Prince George's County resident, so I understand the concerns in reference to 311. What we noticed here, I can just give you a little bit about that, and now what we're doing is we had some system failures in 311, the capacity. We learned through Winter Storm Fern that the phone system could only take 99 calls. And everything over 99, the calls dropped off. So we had a lot of concerns about their phone calls being disconnected. So we found that out. What happens with the closure of cases, I could probably give an analogy like this in reference to 911. When you call 911 and they say EMS, fire, or police, and that's just the person taking the call, but the person that comes out to handle your call is either a police officer, a firefighter, or EMT. 311 is the same way. So the call taker is not the person that's closing out your case, that your case is then assigned to DPI, DPWT, DOE, or whatever the appropriate agency. And what we're finding is we have another system, and the two systems are not communicating. So when some of the cases are closed, you're not getting an explanation. And then some of them are being closed without the service being fulfilled, and that's an accountability issue. So we're working on that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Mack. I've been here in PG for 38 years. My central point is simple. Prince George's homeowners have been paying more because rising home values have increased, causing taxpayers to pay more, even though the county's general real property tax rate has changed very little. You say there's no tax increase this year. Well, no tax increase, but there's a tax payment increase because it's based on how often on the assessment of your property, which you do every 3 years. So it's a treadmill we're on. Looking at from 2020 to 2024, there's been a 28% increase in the tax burden on property owners. I don't know if anybody here got a 28% salary increase. But, okay. So my suggestion is look around you at other counties. Look at Montgomery County, for example. We charge our developers $30,000 to $50,000 less per house than Montgomery County. That's about $20 to $50 million a year that could be going into the buckets and helping to reduce this ever-increasing death spiral that we have here in taxes. I also want to add very quickly on the waste and all of that thing, we need to modernize because the county is just going to keep growing, but using drones to check on those contractors and to see what work is going on, we need to increase drone capacity and drone activity, and we also need to move AI into a more central role. And I'm suggesting that you actually make it a line item reporting directly to the director of management, and not budget, but the director of management under the county executive, so that it has a real task force, a real purpose, and a report. And we need more reports from you because there's been so many of these projects, like the one coming up. You have to negotiate, and you have to give them.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
It's
So just a
okay.
quick. I'm just saying we need to know more about what's going in and what you're giving these developers and
Right.
businesses to come here, so that we know that we're not getting robbed.
Thank you. Councilmember Bogay.
Thank you. You mentioned the AI, so I did want to mention we do have a AI task force through my office that we've been working on for the past year. We are trying to, and of course, now that we have the county executive in, we're going to be working with her office to really use AI to make things easier. People talk about the 311. They are AI tools that could actually make it easier for you to get a response quickly. There are all types of things that we're trying to do to actually use AI to improve the services while balancing, on the other hand, making sure that there's ethical use and other things. And then also, one of the reasons I started the task force is that's another way to increase our commercial tax base. AI is an industry, and it's an industry. If we have quantum here, we can also have AI and be a leader in that, as we want to diversify our industries in light of the attack on our federal workforce and the loss of jobs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and addressing the community today, and thank you for your service. Good evening. My name is Arnetta Rogers, and I am a resident of Prince George's County and the founder of United Steps Forward Incorporated. Incorporated. I'm here today to speak about pedestrian safety along the Branch Avenue corridor between Arth Road and Linda Lane. This is not just a concern, it's personal. I'm sorry. A second. My apologies, you guys. And it's eating my time.
It's okay. Can we pause our time?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeez, please. That's what happens when you're nervous. Jeez. Hold on. Oh, man. Was there anybody behind me?
Do you want, you want us to continue on and then let you come back when you find your notes, okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah, for
Please,
sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you just make an asterisk by the name so we make sure we call it back?
Okay. Our next three are Robin Bates, Lolita Walker, and Nat Lewis.
Good evening, council ladies. Thank you all for coming and offering this, again, town meeting. I have a series of questions based upon the presentations that were given today, tonight. One of them is the SPEAR. I am a resident of District 8, but I also own a property in District 7, so I'm well aware of the challenges that go on in Southern County. The SPEAR, will there be public hearings regarding the SPEAR, or is just a done deal that the citizens are not going to get any input? I live off of 210, and I know what traffic looks like. We don't even get the benefit of the harbor because it's so expensive to park there. So it's not really benefiting us, it's benefiting people from the outside. When you bring things into the community, it's supposed to be an asset for us also, and I find that that's not happening. So that's my question. Will there be public hearings where citizens can have input? The other is, I was looking at the budget, and I noticed that Parks Department, National Park and Planning, has 37.9% of the budget. My question is why? When I see so many other, like the libraries and other agencies that would have more need for the money. So can you speak to that, why they have such a large percentage of the budget? 37% for park and planning, that's an awful lot. And here in Southern County, we certainly don't get the monies. The other thing is the data center. I have a question with Councilwoman Oriata. I saw somewhere, I got an email where there was with the data centers, there was something about the distance where data centers could be placed, and I think it was something that a bill or something that you had introduced, and if I'm wrong, correct me, if you can address that. And then the other thing is the CDC, where you talked about the members. My question is, are those members selected district-wide? How are those individuals selected? And if not, I would suggest that you would have representation from all of the districts. And the last thing is DPI and enforcement. Is it really a budget issue and a staffing issue?
Thank you. So a few questions. I want to make sure I got all of them. When you said the memberships, what group did you say? Oh, thank you,
The
EDC.
Economic Development Council, where you were saying that
No.
certain people in the northern county was getting more than the southern county. My question is the membership and representation. Do you have individuals from all the districts?
Mhm.
We have the council members. Do you have representation where things will be equitable for all of the districts versus certain districts getting more than other districts? And
Thank
if
you.
not, I would recommend that.
No, I understand it now. Thank you. So, the first question about the sphere, yes, that'll be public hearings. It hasn't come before the council, so it's not a done deal. What they're going after now is changing the legislation around the TIF process, and that's basically just the ability for the government to invest in a project. So they had to change legislation on the state level that would even allow that type of investment. So they've had public hearings on the state level for that portion of the project. Well, let me not even say project, just the ability from a funding perspective. Now, once the project actually submits for development or wants to move through the process, it would follow the same process of any other project, where there'd be mandatory community meetings, where there'd be a public hearing before the planning board, where there'd be a public hearing before the council, and even before that process, there's mandatory community meetings that they would have to hold before they submit any application. So nothing from that vantage point has happened yet, and all of those things are still slated to happen. The other question around the data center legislation, so that was a mistake what they sent out. So what the piece of legislation that myself, Councilmember Begay, and Councilmember Denoga did was repealing what previous council did. So as many know, that the council before myself and Councilmember Begay were elected passed legislation that would allow for data centers to skip the council and go straight to permitting. And so when we were made aware of that legislation and the consequences of what was happening at Landover, I promised that I would repeal that I would make sure that that was no longer the law. And so all my legislation did is repeal what that past council did, which was basically taking out the council and the community. And then the last thing around representation. So the EDC, it is a quasi-government agency. So they have like a president, but the representation of the board. So it's not like a appointed position where it has representation from like different jurisdictions. It just has a person that the board appoints to be their president to run the EDC. So that isn't something that's appointed by representatives of the jurisdictions.
Is that something that you all could look at structurally?
So one of the things that we're doing from an investment standpoint, I put forth legislation this year, for example, part of what the EDC and FSC has when it comes to resources is something called the EDI fund. It's basically a fund that's been $50+ million used to invest in economic development, small businesses, helping them grow or expand. So what I've done is I've put forth legislation that is asking for a carve out of a percentage of that, specifically for restaurants, and those restaurants specifically 70% of the funds to be used inside of the Beltway. So one of the strategies that myself and some of my colleagues look at is when we have pots of resources, we do have the ability to say we're going to carve out so that the funding can be used in parts of the community that have historically been denied. And so we are working on that.
My concern is you're only in office for you're only on term limits.
Yes, ma'am.
And once you're gone,
Yes, ma'am.
then what does that mean? I mean, if this has historically been an organization
Mhm.
that has been not fair to other counties,
Right.
will it go back to the same?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the legislation is so important. Some people ask, why do I legislate those percentages and those carve outs? Because once I pass it, it's the law unless someone comes back and changes the law. So then I don't have to negotiate with the person that's sitting at the table that there will be carve outs for inside of the Beltway in our district. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm working on that legislation, is so that those set asides exist. Thank you. And that is separate. So Park and Planning has their own tax. So they have their own tax on your taxes. So they collect their own taxes separate. So they have additional funding because they're not competing with the taxes collected like other agencies. They have their own taxes that you'll see, and they get their funding separate. No, so what I'm saying is I'm not sure where you're looking at, and Director, she's going to come offline to look at exactly what you're looking at, but the Park and Planning has their own separate tax, so they're not competing with the funds, like when you look at this percentage breakout, they wouldn't be competing with like the police department and the school system and social services because they have their own funding source. But I'll let the director, if you can look offline at the paper she's looking at.
We put it in the budget book for information purposes only, so that Maryland National Park and Planning CIP budget that you're looking at is not funded through the county.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your patience. I have my backup now. Good evening. My name is Arnetta Rogers, and I'm a resident of Prince George's County and the founder of United Steps Forward, Inc. I'm here today to speak about pedestrian safety along the Branch Avenue corridor between Arthur Road and Linda Lane. This is not just a concern, it's personal. On December 12, 2023, my brother, Grady Jefferson III, lost his life while attempting to cross this roadway. Since that time, another life has been lost, and 4 others between 2019 and 2024 have lost their life, and 4 others critically injured. But beyond my personal loss, this corridor presents clear safety risks, high speed traffic, multiple lanes, limited to safe crossings, and heavy pedestrian movement between residential areas and transit areas. I've taken the time to study the corridor, compile data, and develop a conceptual approach that includes potential safety solutions such as pedestrian bridge, improved lighting, and multi-modal access considerations. I've also begun engaging with local and state agencies, and my goal is to support a coordinated data-informed safety review of this corridor. As you consider budget priorities, I respectfully ask that pedestrian safety, particularly along high-risk corridors like Branch Avenue, be included as a priority to review, planning, and future investment. My goal is simple: to help ensure that no other family experience a loss like mine. My brother had 7 children and 2 grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have noted your requests. And then also, Jeremy from the office, can you get her contact information? I'm interested in definitely looking at the work that your organization is doing.
Yes, ma'am. I have some illustrations for you, if you wouldn't mind. I know you're getting tired, but
no, you're
okay.
fine. I apologize. My eyes are watering. But no, we'll get that information.
Okay,
And,
yes,
yeah.
ma'am. And lastly, I am the business development and project manager for Athletes Global. We provide over 200 programs, including professional development and staffing, to Prince George's County Public Schools. We just won a sizable award for the district. And so to the brother who was speaking, I would love to connect with you with that bilingual, because one of the problems we have is that the black children and the Latina or the other cultures are in their own groups, and it's just the cultural disparity. They need to understand one another. So I definitely would like to connect with him. I don't know his name, the language Emergent, so that we could produce the program, because I have the funding. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Ivy?
Yes, I just wanted to say, Ms. Rogers, I'm really sorry about your brother. And I was hit by a car when I was 3. So I was always very nervous as a mom with my kids, going through parking lots, going across the street. And of course, you can't stop worrying about them no matter how old they are. It would be good if we could have a copy of what you have already done, and we could perhaps put in for a traffic study for that corridor so we could get more information to add to it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Bouguet?
No, and I also want to make sure that you know that I do sympathize with you. I lost my dad due to a car actually hitting him, so I understand. I would say this. This is going to the National Infrastructure Bank we talked about. Part of the reason we have an issue with some of the traffic calming is that we are all putting our streets on the list for upgrades. It's a money issue. Anytime you do a traffic study, if you need a light, that's $1 million. If different things require money. So that's one of the reasons why I started focusing on the infrastructure bank, to be able to push for allowing projects like yours to become a priority, because now everything, we can pay for everything or most things versus having to fight over which street is more important.
Thank you.
Chair, council members, and community members, good evening. I am Lolita E. Walker of District 9. I did write it down so I can make sure I stay on my 2 minutes. I'll be brief and highlight 4 connected areas: infrastructure, budget and accountability, equitable investment in District 9, and data center development. First, I want to thank Ms. Hartwell for raising the safety concerns on 210, which many of us have traveled, including myself, and I also appreciate the council and the community members that advocate in Annapolis to push the corridor to be safer. Related to 210, which I and several of my family members live off of, I want to briefly illuminate what Dr. Moss mentioned. We're starting to see more and more abandoned cars and large pockets of trash. I just saw a playpen the other day on 210. And so what I'm hoping you can do is help us better understand the county's plan to coordinate with MDOT to address this more consistently. I do know that Senator Charles has a regular monthly meeting where they're included, but I'm wondering the county's perspective on ongoing partnerships and accountability. The second, more broadly, as we discuss infrastructure and investment, I wanted to connect this to the budget. So completely recognize that the county's priority, obviously, is funding allocations across many critical areas like education, public service, and emergency services. So my question around that is, as we move from allocation to implementation, can you walk us through briefly how this translates into a clear action plan with measurable outcomes, and then how residents will be able to track the progress throughout the year? Additionally, for communities like District 9, the southernmost part of the county, there continues to be a need to ensure a fair share of investments in smart commercial development, services, and transportation. I look forward to continued advocacy, not only from the District 9 council person, but also from our fellow 7 and 8 to help represent our southernmost part of the district as well. That's more just a comment. And lastly, regarding data centers, okay.
If you want to finish your sentence.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was just going to say that I'm hoping the county council and task force that's already there just can have the public be able to see what the criteria is for some of the concerns that the community has, as well as the projected revenue. If you can make it public once it's finished so that we can also see that data.
Thank you. So the report, I believe, is already public, so we'll make sure everyone that we can, before you leave, make sure you know where to find it, and then we can try to elevate it in our next newsletter. So if people haven't had an opportunity to see the report, that we could do that.
Just really quickly, sorry, around that one, it's more of the myths versus the facts because there's so much information that's out there. So specifically on the categories that residents are concerned with, plus, but I'll take a look at that and also help to elevate that. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I know that there's an effort from the county executive to have a coordinated, continue having coordinated effort with MDOT between what the state roads are and the Department of Public Works and Transportation. I know we had representation. I don't know if the director wanted to speak to any changes that are happening with that, if they are still here. I don't see the director. And then the last point, I just want to make sure I understood the question around, oh, sorry, the director, did you stand up? Oh, yes. If you wanted to address any of the coordination that's happening between MDOT and the county.
Good evening. Mike Johnson, the director of DPWT. So we work very actively with SHA, District 3, which is the district that governs Prince George's County. Just this last week, we were working on 210. So because it's a state highway, their state law requires certain protections and a permit from SHA for forces like ours to work on those roads. So because we have strong working relationships with the state, we were able to get a permit working with the strike force team. And I think in 3 days they picked up about 3 or 4 tons of litter off 210. So that's right. So that's an ongoing activity. We also work on 4, 210, 214, and within the constraints of our manpower, we're working quite actively and very effectively with the state. No, that's.
Thank you. And then the last question around implementation, were you talking about around infrastructure specifically? So were you talking about if funding was allocated to, for example, road repavement, that how can the residents track where the money's spent? I just want to make sure I understood the question.
Maybe like a scorecard. So for instance, there was a lot of, we balanced the budget as of this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of cuts that had to happen with services.
Mm-hmm.
How do we track the spending against that? And maybe there could be a scorecard at a high level for
Mm-hmm.
each of those agencies.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Nat Lewis. I'm a retired professional golfer, and I used to be the assistant director of First Tee at the Henson Creek Golf Course. I live in the Mitchellville area, and when I was down here, I asked for a casual police presence at the Henson Creek Golf Course during opening and closing because I was concerned about the senior citizens in the clubhouse that was opening and closing that golf course by themselves. I don't know if they've done anything about that or not. Also, I've asked for a practice putting, chipping, and pitching green over there at the Henson Creek Golf Course. The parking planning always tells me, well, we're working on it. We're working on it. Well, but yet, I have noticed that at the Paint Branch Golf Course, they have put these big lights over a snake-infested area for our children to practice on after dark. Now, we didn't ask for that. That was a total waste of money. And they put GPS systems in the golf carts over there on the little small 9-hole golf course. You just don't do that. That's a waste of money. And I tried to prevent them from doing it, but they had already done it. And what I'm asking you, parking planning needs to be reformed. I'm talking about from top to bottom. I'm not talking about the volunteers or the employees. Park and planning needs to be reformed. Thank you.
Thank you. Probably my colleagues are laughing inside because they know that I 100% agree with you around park and planning. It's probably been the biggest overhaul that I would like to see. I don't want to disparage the amazing staff at the different recreation centers that are doing their best to serve our communities, but you're absolutely right that we have to make sure we all pay a separate tax to park and planning, separate, so they get their own stream of revenue. And the reality is that how are they spending their dollars to ensure that it has the right impact in our communities? So, for example, we have Safe Summers, and we can come to the rec center, and I said, send me all the Safe Summers. I want to see, I want to support. And they had a list of activities, but in reality, they might have only been doing 2 of them. And when I came, there was no one there. So I run parallel Safe Summer programs out of my office where it's 100% full. I pay for it out of my office budget, but that should be going out of park and planning because you already pay taxes for that. And we are trying to make sure that they are spending the money in a way that makes sense and it matches what the community wants to see, and that our money's not being wasted. They're not spending $195 million on a building that they can sit in for their staff, the upper management, while rec centers don't have buses for our kids for after-school care programs, while our senior programs don't have buses for field trips, while they don't have access to the programming that they deserve. So trust me, we are fighting them tooth and nail, and we really need the community to show up for this fight because they think that we're just complaining. It's, my colleagues know that Ed and I, this is probably the thing we've been fighting over for the last 3 years. And we really need the community to say that you all agree with us that this money should not be spent on buildings and security for high management and SUV vans so they could be driven around in Suburbans. This money should be spent in our communities. They promised a year-round job program for young adults, didn't do it. Promised to expand daycare, didn't do it. That money's just sitting there being wasted instead of them actually spending that money in our communities so that they can hog it, so they can pay people hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pockets while our communities are paying these outrageous taxes and not getting the services that we deserve. So I'll end with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Sir, did I already
Oh,
Can I?
sorry,
yes,
Councilman
Ms. I
Bogart.
just wanted to talk to Mr. Lewis and thank him so much. If you guys don't know, he's a big part of training our youth in golfing. He and many of the others are actually international golfers, and he spends his time pushing for golfing training for our youth. So we do appreciate you, Mr. Lewis, for the great work you've done. We did try to resolve the issue, so I understand the concerns. Oh, you did? It was resolved? Okay, so it was resolved. Okay. So I'm glad we're coming close to a solution there, but thank you so much for your work in the community.
Okay. Sir, I see you standing there. Did I call your name?
No, you didn't. I thought I just could walk up and just say something.
We're
Just real quickly.
Yes.
We can have you sign up right there and we'll get you in the queue.
Yes. And I'm going to ask everyone respectfully that we are approaching the 8 o'clock hour, and there are people who have been waiting patiently to speak. I'm going to ask something of you. Once you've asked your question, if we could limit the question, just one question, let's get the question out so that the council members can answer your question. Once they have answered, I'm going to ask that we not go back and forth. If you have an additional question or remark, I ask that you come over to me, and I'm actually going to point you to the community partner or the person that you should connect with. out of respect for our neighbors, each other that have come out. So let's do that. And I'm going to call up 5 people next, okay? So as your name is called, if you can approach the mic, I appreciate your patience. Dominique Lamb, Erica McKinney, Brittany Patrick, Stan Briscoe, and Tanya Sweat. If you can please move towards the mic. Thank you so much for your patience.
So do we still get 2 minutes? Okay. My name is Dominique Lamb. I'm running for County Council for District 6. I do have a couple questions. I'm going to try to get it in my 2 minutes. You spoke, there are a few questions about education and the budget cuts, specifically the $150 million that's been deemed a cut for discipline. I know that I grew up in PG County schools. I was in the International Baccalaureate program, and at the time, there were programs that were being cut. So now, these specialty programs that are being cut, to me, that's not discipline. That's something that's necessary for our schools and for our students. And I'm curious about why the school system has to compete for funds when park and planning doesn't. I'm also curious, you mentioned that Parks and Planning, we're fighting tooth and nail to regulate their spending. Who regulates them? Who is in charge of making sure that they do deliver on the things that they have promised? I'm curious about the status of the food desert study, because that's really important, the fact that almost half the county lives in a food desert. I'm also curious about the status of a new county auditor. And my last question is about, there was a bill or some legislation, CR 068-2022, that was introduced that was supposed to establish an equity body to evaluate legislation and policies to make sure that they don't have inequitable impact on our community, and I haven't seen anything from that.
Thank you for your questions. So when it comes to regulating park and planning, it's twofold. So we will pass the budget, and the issue that we're having is that we can say, we want you to spend money on these X amount of projects. So for example, I put in funding specifically for a year-round jobs program for the park and planning to run. And then I put in funding for expanding, like currently they run 2 daycares, but it's only for county employees. So I put in money for them to expand it to be open to residents and not just county employees. But they didn't do anything with it. They just didn't do it. And so this is the fight that we're having, that we will allocate the funding, mandate the activity, but they're choosing not to do the work. So we are continuing to fight and hopefully make changes if needed to get the end results, to make sure that the programming that we're fighting for, that we're putting in the budget, actually comes to fruition. And then your other question around the equity evaluation, can you give me the number for the legislation again?
CR
I know that's why.
068
CR 068
2022.
2022. So that was before our time. So I want to go back and check on it to see if it was like a commission, because sometimes what it'll say is that they have to evaluate it, so it might be part of the policy reports that we get. So every legislation that comes before the council has a policy analysis, so it could be automatically part of our policy analysis, but I will double check on that.
It was supposed to be a report issued by the Office of Audits and Investigations, and I've looked at their website. There's no report that's been issued.
Okay, so I will look into that resolution. Thank you for that. The auditor position is open for applications. It's on our queue to review, hopefully within the next month, for the council auditor position that we appoint. And was there another question I missed?
The food desert and the education budget.
So the food desert, are you talking about the grocery store legislation?
That you put forward.
Oh, yes. So that report is due to us. So that report will be coming from the Redevelopment Authority and Revenue Authority. And so it's in the queue from our legislative impact. Our hope is to have a briefing on it after the budget session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you speak
And
to
I
that?
apologize, I broke the rule. My colleague is telling me we're only supposed to answer one question, so I apologize. I've answered 3. So I'm going to make sure that we go to the next person, and I apologize.
Okay, and can someone address the education budget issue?
Yes. Is our school board member still here?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica McKinney. I'm a resident of Upper Marlboro in District 6, and I have about 14 issues. And so I'm going to be doing this in rapid succession, so I'm going to meet my time. You can choose to answer which ones you can answer in the time. Okay, number 1, someone mentioned the energy. So are we considering renewable energy sources, in other words, like solar farm or wind energy, to try to bring down these costs and also reduce the amount of money that the county spends in their buildings, school systems, and so forth? Building and infrastructure. This is one thing that burns my biscuits. As someone who sits at the intersection of, I think it's Brown Road and Richard Marlboro every morning, fighting for my life, trying to make a left turn to go to work in the morning. I was told there was a traffic study being done. That was 2 years ago. What in the world's going on? Why do we continue to put the cart in front of the horse? We build and build and build and give these developers these permits to build and build 69,433,602 units, and yet they all have to come out on a road that's not even half the width of this gymnasium. It makes no freaking sense. I don't understand it. Somebody please explain it. I hope that you will answer that one right there. Speaking of which, I understand that the developers also give the county X amount of dollars. I don't know the number, but they also give the county money. I went to the state. I asked Senator Watson. I said, Senator Watson, where is this money? And he said, that's a good question. I've been waiting 3 years for Prince George's County to answer that question, to tell me where's this money. Where is, as Clara Pella would say, where's the beef? Where's the money? We need the money to do various things. Road infrastructure is one of them. You mentioned litter cameras. Where are they? I've only seen one, and that is on 301, just before Trade Zone Avenue. And I promise you, it sits. Here's the camera. The light is up there by the screen. Makes no sense whatsoever. Education, we talked about $1.3 billion. What are the improvements? Are we getting our fair share from the state? Years and years ago, almost 30 years ago, I learned that Montgomery County went to the state of Maryland, and they walked away with over 45% of state funds. 45, which means that leaves the other jurisdictions scrambling for the other 55%.
Thank you.
That is...
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you for your question.
Councilmember Blagay.
I want to start with the renewable energy issue. So there is a line item in you actually pay it in your bill. It's called Empower. And that is supposed to actually help fund energy efficient energy efficient products. And I would even add that if you get information, that goes to the utilities, and the utilities offer all types of those. You think it's a freebie, but you actually pay for it. So just note that those are ways that that fund is supposed to help people become more energy efficient. Now, I will add this. Remember, at the federal level, a lot of the renewable energy sources were given through IRA credits. IRA credits at the federal level through the EPA provided a lot of businesses the opportunity to give. You see the programs Free Solar. Well, the reason why they had that was that the IRA credits would pay for the solar. So they were able in certain jurisdictions, zip codes, to put free solar on the roof or discounted solar in some other places. So we do need to get that fund, those credits going, because those credits are expiring and some others have expired. But there does need to be more efforts to create more renewable energy solutions. But I will say at the federal level, the reason why there was so much interest in before is because the federal level provided credits and money that provided a incredible amount of funding for it. I did want to talk about the traffic study on Ritchie Road, I think you talked about. We did get response from that, and the director is actually here. They were a part of that. There were recommendations put forth. And some were implemented. Now, what we did find is that some of the things that we wanted to be immediately done, the recommendation of the traffic study did not provide that. And this is a federal standard, so they're only able to implement what is recommended. The issue that we have, again, this is going to the infrastructure issue, is funding. Because then once you get the recommendations, you have to go to DPWT and fight over which intersection gets what. And that's where we have a lot of issues. I will say, where does the money from the developer go? It goes to the general fund. And that is something that we did that has been discussed. That is there enough money put aside just for the infrastructure, roads and schools and things like that. But the truth is, even with that money put aside, it still wouldn't be enough for all of the changes that need to be made. Remember, especially in that Ritchie Marlboro area, you're moving from what was originally a rural area and putting all these suburban houses. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put forth to really make it easy to get in and out.
Thank you. Councilmember Ivy.
As far as renewable energy, let's all remember that Trump is trying to kill that as we speak. And he's doing all he can to remove the permits for the wind farms, to stop solar. He's trying to do all he can to poison us, is all I can tell, because he's trying to increase coal. Somebody make it make sense. But in the meanwhile, we already have in Prince George's County, we do have a lot of solar on a lot of the public buildings, and the new schools are being built in a really amazing way. Some of them have geothermal, and they're built very tight. They have solar. They have a lot of things on them that are making them extremely great when it comes to renewable energy and them not costing us and not creating pollution. So I'm proud of the direction that we've been going on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Brittany Patrick, Suitland resident and president of the Suitland Civic Association. My grandparents built their home in Suitland in 1967, and I purchased that home last year. My grandfather helped to shape the Suitland Town Center plan along with the council and park and planning back in the year 2006. He passed in 2020 without ever seeing that vision realized. And nearly 20 years later, we're still waiting. For multiple fiscal years, this council has approved a budget line item for Suitland redevelopment. Yet we are not seeing those funds translate into real, tangible, visible projects and investment. And at the same time, the council has chosen not to support the current state legislation to establish a Suitland Development Authority that could help streamline and accelerate investment. So today, I am urging the council to make good on the funding that's already been allocated by prioritizing and executing the projects that have already been clearly defined. That includes Phase 3 of the Suitland Town Center redevelopment and implementation of the Suitland Cultural Arts Strategy. These are not new ideas. The plans already exist. What we need now is for the budget to fund and deliver them with clear timelines and accountability. Suitland has waited long enough. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, this is a top priority for me, making sure that the funding is allocated, that the projects move forward. I've met with the county executive's new appointed leadership for both the redevelopment and revenue authority that operate that project, and we'll be hosting a redevelopment conversation on the update. I believe it's tomorrow evening. And the reason why myself and some leaders are not supporting the legislation on the state level is concerns that it will bypass. There's a part of the law that's not clear that we've asked for to be clear about, specifically not having to follow any state or local laws. And a lot of you know this, and a lot of residents, that sometimes we have issues where there's these multifamily units that are coming, and it's rare that we're able to do anything about it, and sometimes we can. But part of it is because there's a process, very clear process, around the standards. And so when we ask for amendments to say, could you clarify that this would not overstep the law? It would not overstep community involvement. It wouldn't overstep those things. Those amendments were refused to be brought into the legislation. So there's a concern that the legislation is very much supported by pro-developer, that you said that there's legislation that we're not clear on the authority. So there's an accountability to the planning board, there's accountability to council members that are elected, but I will always second guess giving carte blanche authority to people that are just appointed to be able to annex any part of the property that they want, bypass state law, bypass local law, and when you ask them to clarify that this will not overstep community input, just put that in. Put that amendment in if that's not your intention, and I will support it. And the answer is no. And then I get a call from developers with these new ideas about Suitland development that they want to take it back to ground zero. And they want to start the entire development process all over again and stop what they've already promised people in that community. And so I am very concerned about the intention of the legislation. So it's my job never just to believe what they tell you on face value. I read every piece of legislation. If a line doesn't make sense, I ask for clarity. I ask for an amendment that will safeguard my community. But if it passes and it is meant, because maybe it's not meant to do that. Maybe there's no intention of having control now that Suitland's a hot area and to usurp the authority of the community to have voice. But if it passes and that happens, my hands are 100% tied. Have we not learned from when they did that with the data center bill? Some people will pass something so that then they can sit there and say, well, I don't have control over that. That's not me, that's this body. And I will never do that to my community. I am never going to say, let it pass, let's see what happens. If my community gets screwed, I can just say, well, I didn't do it, the state did it. I'm going to make sure that we have a seat at the table. I'm going to make sure the law makes sense. I'm going to make sure that it not at all carves out the community's input. So thank you.
Okay, my name is Stanley Briscoe. I live in District 7, and I have two quick comments. I know the legislation was passed to have grocery stores put governors on their grocery carts, but it's one in particular on Branch Avenue, since you want specifics, 4119 Branch Avenue. Carts are everywhere, in the street, on the dividers, on the roadways, all over the parking lot. So I'm wondering when can you enforce what you pass? That's one. Two, accessibility requirements for businesses need to be inspected. Aldi's is a big violator. I've gone into Aldi's. You can't get in the restrooms. Anyone with a disability couldn't get in the restrooms. They can't get through some of the doors. And I've mentioned to the managers over and over. So in the accessibility area, they need to do better inspections, follow on all the businesses. Because people who need this have got to have it. You know, it's not a luxury. The third thing is marijuana and driving is an epidemic. You can't drive to church. You can't drive to the store. Pull up to a stoplight, marijuana's flowing everywhere. Now, I know the law was changed, so law enforcement couldn't take a look at that stopping people, but it needs to be put back in because people they're just violating it everywhere. Kids, their parents are smoking around kids. You see it all the time. Kids go to school high. That's why they're having problems. Then they want to give them, anyway, I'm stopping. But marijuana's out of control.
Thank
you don't
you.
need any more grocery stores, any more stores selling marijuana.
Yes.
But we need to crack down on the driving and the marijuana.
Yes.
And that's my point.
Thank you for that. And we agree that that's the state issue around legalization, so it's hard for us to do anything about it now that it is legal. But it is still illegal to drive under the influence. So that still is the law. Okay.
Fire.
Is everyone okay?
Fire department, they got to
okay.
go.
They got to
First
call.
responders.
Okay. Just want to make sure nothing happened. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and my neighbors and community. I'm Tanya Sweat. I've heard discussions this evening about affordable housing, and having worked in that arena in the federal government, we need to start talking about income-based housing, and we also need to do some accessible housing in Prince George's County. I have 3 questions regarding revenue in our budget. The county has made a lot of investments in commercial spaces, and we talk about government investment. At the local and state level, that government investment is our tax dollars. It's coming out of our pockets. What is the recovery on the investments that the county has already made in many commercial areas in this county? Is anyone advocating at the state level to change state laws so that Maryland becomes more business friendly? We might be able to recruit more businesses that we want to see if we change our state laws. And number 3, what is the current revenue that we're getting from the businesses that exist within Prince George's County?
Councilman Bouquet. It goes back to what we said before. We get, the way our budget is, we get about 20% commercial development. That's the money that the county gets. We usually, as you know, the county's budget is made up of mostly property taxes. So we get residential property, and then we get the income tax from the state. So the money that we're getting from business right now is about 30%, close to 30%. And that's how much we get from businesses. That's really why our hands are tied with a lot of the budget requirements that we have. Many of the issues that you complain about, there's usually a budget or money tied to it that does limit us. So that's one of the challenges we're trying to work with the county executive, all stakeholders, to increase the number of that number from 30% higher. Now, when it comes to, was it a question about affordable housing? Now we do want more affordable housing because, as you can see, there is a growing homeless population that's growing in our community, and a lot of that is because we have a very limited stock of affordable housing. However, again, this goes back to the federal government and President Trump. There has been a lack of investment in affordable housing at HUD level. Most developers do not want to do affordable housing because they do not make much money from it. So that leaves a lot of nonprofits that we know that are investing in affordable housing. But the reason, what will get the interest of the developers, much like we talked about the interest, the green, the environment, the interest came from credits from the IRA and investment in green. The same thing we need at the federal level. This administration has no interest in us, so HUD has cut a lot of funding, and those HUD funding is what brought the affordable housing that we see in this county today. We need more investment from the federal government in affordable housing, and that would allow us to be able to get funding for developers, for nonprofit developers. I do want to mention 2 legislations that we put forth to address affordable housing. One was my land bank. We're trying to get a land bank. A land bank would allow us every abandoned property that we have. We have about 3,000 to 4,000 abandoned property. If it is abandoned, it could be, if it goes through a tax sale, it could be placed in a land bank, and that land bank will be responsible for making sure that home now becomes an affordable option. Habitat Humanity came in and testified. We talked about that because their organization that can take a house and rebuild it up and allow it to be an affordable housing stock. And I want to give Councilmember Alston the credit because he does have the Housing Trust, another way that we can bring affordable housing home.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, if you are blocking someone's car, if you could just please move your car so that they can get out and you can still have your opportunity to speak if you are blocking someone's car. Okay, we're on the home stretch. I'm going to ask for Nervin Sengupta, Ayo Handy, and Warren Johnson.
Thank you, council members, for being here. My name is Nirvan. I first wanted to register strong objection to SB 1005. Senator Ron Watson, hailing from Bowie and Upper Marlboro, I think is the district, introduced it. For 100 years, MNC PPC has been a bi-county situation. They've shared resources, HR, IT, etc. I'm not sure why he did this, but this would just impose additional costs for HR, IT, legal, procurement. My only speculation is that this body is also responsible for zoning and for exemptions and amendments and things like that. Jobs First, this real estate-backed political action committee, they're out here spending a lot of money and negative ads on folks that don't support them. I am speculating, my cynical mind is speculating that, I'm not casting aspersions against Senator Ron Watson, but Montgomery's County Planning Board, they've already expressed strong objection to this. I don't understand why there would be any interest in imposing extra costs, number one. Number two, we've been talking about affordable housing. Some folks mentioned property taxes. Is there any interest or possibility of zoning reform from single-family zoning to multifamily zoning? There was a movement in Minneapolis called Neighbors for More Neighbors. Montgomery County tried this, and in short, rich folks didn't want poor folks moving into their neighborhoods, into the rental units. This addresses two issues at once: increases the housing stock, and also would help residential property owners with some extra income. If there's a basement or an extra room, senior citizens with so-called empty nesters, if this would increase their income also. So is there any interest or possibility of zoning reform from single-family zoning to multifamily zoning? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bugay. So there's already an effort of doing that. It's called the dwelling units, I think is ADUs. There is a task force already that's looking into this issue. They are looking at ADUs, and ADUs is exactly what you're talking about, where it allows secondary housing in certain areas and maybe in people's backyards and things like that. And I wouldn't say just rich people have concerns. I would say overall, remember, we have a huge rural tier of people who have a large areas, but they might not necessarily want a lot of housing there. So we're trying to look for a balance, because we do have a lot of people who are in certain areas who feel the biggest issue that Prince George's County has is infrastructure. So if you add small housing in some places, the biggest concern is with the traffic that comes along with it. And this gets into the issue that everybody brings up here, is that there's a lot of traffic on the road, and the road needs to be upgraded. The more people you put in those lands, that is another issue. So we do need to address it. And I will say SB 1005 has been brought to my attention. We'll be reaching out to Okay, and yes, so and I'll turn it over to the chair.
Yeah, thank you. So echo the sentiments of my colleague. It's something that they're looking at. But we have to be mindful, because there's areas in my community where sometimes they're asking to put multifamily in historically single family communities, and the residents don't want it there. And it's not about them being rich and not wanting poor people in their community. It's about the traffic. It's about changing the neighborhood. So I think it's a more nuanced conversation in Prince George's County than it might be in Montgomery County. So I just don't want to throw away the opinions of the homeowners that have invested in those single-family homes and say that we just have to build huge apartments next to those historically single-family home communities, and not think about what the impacts could be for a lot of those communities, especially our senior population that have lived there for a very long time. The second part about Senate bill that you're referring, I'm in support of that legislation because there's issues between Prince George's County and Montgomery County, and we invest twice as much as Montgomery County does. Their recreation department is already separate. They get to run that completely in their county, while we run our recreation department through the bi-county. So when it comes to HR, how fast we can move, there's issues there. Also, procurement standards. We do want to have higher standards than just the state. We really do want to prioritize black and brown businesses, locally owned businesses in Prince George's County. That has been an issue of contention between Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And so we want to be able to have procurement standards that match our goals here in Prince George's County. And that PAC that you talked about, they put a lot of money against me. So trust me, if I'm for something, it's not because the developers are for it. I mean, they do not want me to keep this seat because I'm very pro-community. I'm very anti-bad development. I'm always anti cutting out the community from the development process.
First and foremost, I want to give thanks and praise for the opportunity of being here. I'm a proud member of District 7, Crystal Ornado. How you doing? My name is Ayo Handy Kendi. As a resident of District 7, I live on Opus Avenue, 1311 Opus Avenue in Capitol Heights. I keep calling the staff and speaking to staff members about the wellness center, the Women's Wellness Center. I've also spoken to you directly about some of the development concepts that I suggested around Opus Avenue. We have a real blessing there at Opus and Capitol Heights Boulevard, where I'm proposing a development project of walking trails and nature centers in the woods. There's a creek there. There's a deer that come up every year, little fawns that we watch them grow up to be big, deer with the horns and the antlers. There's foxes and possums and beautiful birds. And we have Oakcrest Recreation Center, but it's the traditional recreation center. There's no green space in Capitol Heights. The closest green space is a good 12, 15 minutes away. I have designs and ideas, and I need help to suggest suggestions and development plans, and I keep calling, but I'm not getting the answers. I also have a whole list of concerns on Opus Avenue. We have a need for speed bumps because the children walk over to the Oakcrest Recreation Center and the cars speed down that street.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a whole list. So
yes.
I'm just going to give you the list.
Yes, ma'am.
Trash and dumping and lights. And
yes,
so
ma'am.
Why don't I just do that for the sake of time, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And I'll have Trey.
Who should I give this to?
Trey, he's the young man walking to you right now. He'll
Very
take it.
good.
And I do like the idea of for the nature, and so I will make a note for that. So anytime we want a new project, there's like a process because it has to be put in the queue. So it's like when we open up a rec center or we get a new park or anything like that, it has to be put into our CIP plan. And so I will make a note of this to be a suggestion for our CIP plan, specifically with park and planning.
And so some of those questions and designs, can someone contact me back either in writing or a call so I can see if any progress is being made on some of the needs in that neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And Trey, can you make sure you have her name and email and phone number on the paper?
Yes, it's on.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My name is Warren Good Vibes Johnson. That's Dr. Good Vibes. Come from my DJ name. I am a transplant from Washington, D.C. I've been in the county since 1990. I own 3 properties in District 7 and 1 in District 6. Just to give you a little bit of my history, and I'm going to stay under 2 minutes. I was a juvenile offender. The reason why I bring that up is because, in junior high school, they were talking about stealing cars. And I came from a pretty good neighborhood, but it seemed like fascinating. And some one way or another, I went out there and started doing that. And ultimately, as a result of doing that, I caused damage to different people's vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened was I had something inside of me that was saying, this is not you, this is not what you're supposed to be doing, et cetera, et cetera. So they had a community meeting just like this. where Marion Barry and other people had came out to Kelly Miller Middle School. This is 1974. And say, what can we do to change the community? And he was talking and talking. I stood up. I said, first thing you do is start coming out more, having these, what you're doing now. And as a result of me talking, sent somebody, said, hey, get to him. Told me to report downtown on Monday, and I was hired in a summer job program. One of the things I was going to talk about is investing in the youth, summer job programs. But I heard today you already did that. You have 1,000 summer jobs. So I want to applaud you on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was economic development for small businesses. You're doing that. So I just want to say, I think y'all doing good. I take my hat off to you. I think we got some good young talent here in the county. I think we're on our way, and we're going to make some stuff happen. One thing I did bring up at one of the meetings I spoke at, I feel that if we had more tag readers for the Prince George's Police Department, they could be more instead of being reactive, proactive. A tag reader pulled me over one day. I was riding, and all of a sudden a car was coming towards me, and the county officer turned around. He said, hey, your tags are dead. I'm like, what? I'm like, how did you know? But at any rate, I'm saying if you invest in your youth, you turn around. As a result of that, I went to be for the district government, federal government, and serve honorably in the military, and I'm doing quite well. So I thank God investing in your youth.
No, thank
you. And I hope to see you more in the community, too.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate your story. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We are on the home stretch. These are the last 4 speakers for this evening. Keith Parker, Veronica DeVille or Davis. I'm not sure. I apologize. The third person did not write a name. And then Milton Poole. You can go ahead, sir, to the mic. Thank you so much. I thank you for everyone's patience.
Good morning, everyone, and council members. My name is Keith Parker. I'm a Prince George's County resident in District 8. I'm building a local food production system right here in this county. Also been recently nominated to the Maryland State Agricultural Commission. And I want to start with something that stops me every time I think about it. Prince George's County is home to the largest agriculture research library in the world, and we literally wrote the book, but most of this county is a food desert, 43% of it. We have the knowledge, we have empty county buildings, we have unused neighborhoods, we have vacant land, but what we're missing is a system. Recently, the county recently passed Food is Medicine on CR 65. I think that was the right call and a bold commitment, but a commitment without a local supply chain, without funded implementation, is still a promise. For FY27 budget is where that promise either moves forward or it gets deferred. What I'm developing uses empty county buildings to grow fresh food year-round, close to the people where needed most. No long supply chains, no empty shelves. Local food produced locally for local families. That's a supply chain. We had a community reinvestment and repair fund that exists to put resources back into the neighborhoods this county has underserved. The communities living in this food desert are the same communities that the local food production infrastructure in those neighborhoods fund. My answer is pretty simple. As you build the FY27 budget, are we funding the supply chain to bring fresh food into the communities that need it most?
Thank you, Councilman Blagay. Thank you. The Food is Medicine was my bill, and we are going to be the county executive gave good news that they are funding our Food is Medicine program, at least having the staffing to get it started. We are going to be launching out within the next couple months, and what we wanted to do is make sure we have a huge farming community here in Prince George's County, especially in the southern part of the county. And what we want to do is engage them, get them involved in the process of providing fresh fruit to address the food insecurity issue. So we definitely are on our way. It takes a little while to get it going, but the county executive reached out to me, and Food is Medicine will be funded. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Veronica Davila. I'm here from Barnaby Manor Citizen Association. I'm going to reference a couple topics that were mentioned here tonight. The 311 call center. I think the woman left that was in charge, but I just want to employ, when you go back, that they have to stress the realistic expectations from those service calls, from beginning to the end. It could take up to a year. They could do the community partners meetings and they tell you X, Y, Z, but there's no realistic expectations for the community and the residents to follow or to track. And for instance, I can tell you that if you put in a service call and the inspector is separated from the agency, the service call is closed. You don't know that until you go back and you check. Okay, well, we put it in, we thought we did our due diligence, and it's in there, but it's closed. And that's one of the issues we have too, but following it up. I would also like to suggest an annual report from 311 through to the agencies. It could be quarterly or it could be annual, so we can track these service calls from initial input to the closure. Right now, my community has over 250 service calls in the system dating back from 2019. I will say this, and I see Dawood is here, Director Dawood is here. I may be one of a handful of associations. We meet with our supervisors every 90 days to go over the top 20 to 30 cases that we have. I will be honest, I do not always like the answer or the responses, but I respect that we are getting communications and we are getting updates on those service calls. And then it goes back to DPI and the split between enforcement. I have some concerns, very valid concerns in reference to the enforcement with them going over into Homeland Security, what that is going to look like to the public, especially in the times that we're living in now. They're going to be, they're going to move to their own Homeland Security, and there would be no open dialogue. Right now, we have an open dialogue with DPI. When you go into enforcement, it's going to be shut down. We're not going to be able to call and say, what's going on with this service?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So there was a briefing specifically on that change in TIEE, and so we can make sure to elevate that briefing, maybe with send a follow-up email and attach it, because it was a very long briefing that was in Councilmember Janoga's committee. So he asked a lot of those questions because we hear the concern. There's talks about even changing the name because and making sure that the enforcement agency isn't attached to Homeland Security, because we do realize the times we're in. There was thoughts about long-term structure that makes sense to put it in a different agency. It will be something we have to negotiate because they are, union workers and they have a current contract. But part of the goal is that we know a lot of enforcement doesn't happen through just Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. They've already started to expand to Saturday hours, but making sure that we have some, enforcement that could be working evening shifts throughout the week. So there's just some more flexibility that can happen in a different agency, which is the intention behind one of the reasons county executive wanted to shift it. But we'll make sure that we send the briefing, and we might actually host maybe another public conversation in the evening similar to this around that issue, because we realize that the community has a lot of questions and we want to make sure they get all of the answers. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, it's prioritized, because we've had several conversations. I saw the chief was here earlier, and I want to also give the first responders a clap for being here tonight patiently all evening. But there are
thank you, ma'am.
I see.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your comment. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. If you step right over, Trey is in the back, right there. He's waiting for you. He's going to help you. Okay? I apologize, but it is at the late hour, and they do have to shut the gym down. I do apologize. Thank you so much. Sir, if you can step up to the mic. Thank you so much.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. This is a picture right here of rats, gnats, mold, mildew, water leaks. I have been in communication with Mr. Scott Turner of the HUD department. My question to the council, as Ms. Crystal Aorta, you are a mother, Ms. Wallabuge, you are auntie, cousin of somebody. Y'all are not living with rats, rodents, roaches, mice, paying $2,500 in rent. I want to know specifically, what is the county? I don't want to hear nothing else. We talked about a federal budget. We already have a federal budget. PG County has the biggest HUD budget that there is. What are we doing to make sure that our residents, somebody like me, myself, and senior citizens, and those that are disabled, are not living in squalor? I want to know, before we blame Trump and everybody else, what is the council going to do to address PG County constituents living in squalor? Because I'm sure neither of you are living with rats.
Where is this?
District 8.
Okay, and did you send it to my office? Because
I sent it to Ed Barrows.
Okay, we'll
And I'm
follow-
not getting a response, but I got a response from Mr. Scott Turner. So my question to the council now is, what are y'all going to do when HUD decides to come in and do an audit? Because this has been happening all across the whole county. We have a lot of residents that are living in squalor.
And I would just say it for myself, in the districts that I represent, when people reached out, we had our agency leads come in when there was any issues with roaches or mice. It was immediately addressed. So I've never had a moment where someone reached to my office with this issue and it was not resolved.
And I will note that I know that this is something that's really important also to Councilmember Burrows. He's worked with the Attorney General specifically on some of the places in his district to get them prosecuted for the level of misconduct.
This is Huntcrest condominiums in District 8.
I hear you. And I think that there's another thing that really has to be done, and I've had this conversation with the agency about proactive enforcement. I think it's a change that we need to have for a lot of our multifamily units. Like, we're very reactionary. Like, if there's an incident, then you can come out. But there should be a specialized unit for especially areas that we know historically we've gotten a lot of calls. So we shouldn't be just coming out when there's a call. We should be spot checking. We should be coming out. So one of the things I wanted to look at is a specialized unit that specifically looked at these types of multifamily units where they're more susceptible to having these issues. We also have to look at accountability around fines and taking, and this becomes this balance, because we've had issues where I've been working with advocates on the ground, like CASA, where there were slumlords. But the reality was, they were like, but please also don't shut them down, because there's nowhere else for these families to go. Because, we're like, well, this is deplorable conditions, and should the building be condemned? So we're also trying to make sure, what I want to do is balance between what the community is asking for and not do something that displaces people so they're unhoused, but also making sure that these people are held accountable for the upkeep of their properties. We need proactive enforcement. We need harsher penalties when they break the laws. And then we need the resources to take over these properties. It's one of the reasons why I want us to invest more in our Housing Investment Trust Fund, is because we could step in when we have bad actors and not worry about the place being condemned and then no one taking the place up and these people being displaced. But we could say, you're a bad actor, we're forcing you out. The county's going to step in. We could do the investments to get that place up to code, and then we can look for another private provider. So I think that we should be thinking about it differently as a government. It's something I'm advocating for. It's why I'm asking for more funding, because we look at Montgomery County. They have $100+ million in their trust fund to our
But we already have
$20
HUD
million
funding.
in it.
It's
but the
already
reality,
funding
we
here.
spent it took us
But not for
15
the amount of, understand, we have more units, affordable units here than Montgomery County and other places. So we have to stretch our dollars a lot more.
We're not even, y'all keep saying more money to justify.
No.
To justify
we're not saying
what we
more
already
money
have.
to justify.
The code
You're
enforcement is not
asking-
being done.
You're asking for what are we going to do? So what I'm telling you is that there's a couple of things that we're going to do. One, we agree with you that it's deplorable when people reach out to our offices. We do our level best to make sure that the agencies get out there as immediately, but we're going to have to, one, do proactive.
Y'all better get out and vote differently because this
proactive-
stuff is going to continue to happen.
Proactive enforcement. Yes, please do vote.
And he did not contact either one of our offices, but that's okay. You
But
did not contact me.
I don't want to argue, Councilmember.
We're not going to sit here and do this. Listen.
Councilmember, I appreciate your passion, but I agree. I don't want to make sure. I'm asking. I hear you. I don't want. I asked my colleague not to argue with you because I agree. I want you to be able to be here. I want you to be able to say your piece. I agree that those things are deplorable. That's why we have to pass legislation that keeps them accountable. And we have to make sure that we have better enforcement. And I agree, understand your passion because these conditions are disgusting. I have visited these slumlords in my district. I've gone to DBOT to see if they can enforce it. I've passed legislation to try to keep them accountable, to not raise people's rents, to have to actually fix their property. And I agree with them. Please vote because there's a lot of people that sit up here that have voted against every single thing that we've tried to pass to make sure that those people are held accountable. So please pay attention to the legislation that council members put out, what they're trying to move, and how people vote because a lot of them are running for different things. So,
Yes, sir. You're our last speaker for this evening. I apologize
That's
to
okay.
everyone.
That's okay. Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for taking your time and explaining that to a gentleman who obviously had an issue on hand, and you handled that quite professionally. My name is Milton Poole, and I am newly elected chairman of the Progressive Maryland program, working under the guidance of Deja Westfield and my co-chair, Ms. Meacha Brown. I am also the president of my HOA of Oak Hill Towns community townhomes right off of Curtis Drive and 31st Avenue from Branch Avenue, Exxon, and Sam Car Wash. You go up and make a left. My concern, I have two concerns. My first concern is that the lights on Curtis Drive are out and they have been turned off for a year and it's dark when we go up there. And then when you come into our community, it's dark until you turn into and go. We are a private community, so once you get to the private community part, the lights are on, but it is dark, and we have people walking out to the Smart or 7-Eleven. It's dangerous. We hear cries at night on Saturday and Friday of people being assaulted because it's dark and the lights are off. And then if you turn right at the Sam's Car Wash and go up Branch Avenue, the lights are also out, and it's like we deserve lighting in our community, and it's been out, and it's kind of dangerous, and you have to be aware. I'm afraid when my wife walks the dog out and goes past Curtis Drive because it's dark, and I have to listen. So we would like to understand what can be done about the lights on Curtis Drive and Branch Avenue in Temple Hills. I want to bring that to the attention. Also, since we are a private community, we have an instance of, we're right next to the high-rise top of the hill, and we have criminals who come into our community and check our cars, steal our cars, and break into them, and then go out. And if you call 911, it takes 2 hours for them to come out there. And we were just like a presence of the police department,
right?
Because we got a big circle. They can come take a break, eat their lunch, and sit in our circle and assist us with the crime.
No,
so that's our biggest thing. We got 83 townhomes, and these people, they walk through our community at will and break in,
Thank you.
check doors. So
Thank-
police presence and
And the
lighting.
lights, yes. And
Thank
so we just had PEPCO. I do monthly civic roundtables for my District 7 residents, and we had PEPCO on the line, and they are doing a program where they're trying to get a list of all the HOAs and civic associations so they can partner a representative to be on those like monthly calls so that they can get to the repairs faster. So Trey, if you can make sure you get his contact information, I want to make sure we get your HOA and civic association to PEPCO just so that they can have a rep join your regular calls. But then I was going to call you Jeremy. Trey, if you could also get the list of specifically where these lights are out, and then also where they'd like the police presence, and then we'll do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys, we did it. We are at the end. Yay. I want to thank my colleague Walla Begay for toughing it out. I want to thank all of the residents that wanted to sit and make sure they heard everyone. This is the end of our second budget town hall. If you didn't hear a question that you're interested in, please take the survey, share the survey, fill it out. We will do a summary of what was talked about here. Again, I thank everyone for participating. Round of applause to our staff who stayed late. And hopefully everyone gets home safe. Thanks you.